Hi everyone, my name is Charliene Tshitoka. I'm originally from Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and I've been living in South Africa since 2006. I'm currently working for ThoughtWorks, and before that I was a lecturer. So, Mark contacted me last year, and he said, hey, I've heard about you, and I'd like you to talk about this and here. I'm like, software development, I can talk about it. Africa, I can talk about it a lot. So, sure, I'm gonna come and I'm gonna talk about it, and I'm gonna help people how I say these two things together. Software development, it's just kind of part of me, and Africa is something that I love to hate, and I keep on saying that. Because last year I found out it's actually okay to love and hate Africa, and it gave me peace about myself. So how do I talk about these two things together? I tend to like numbers. So when I said, and I said, okay, I'm going to talk about Africa, how big is it anyway? That number I remember from school was 30 million square kilometers. And it's like, how big is it really? If you tell me that 90% of people in this room are likely to sleep in the next 10 minutes, to me, I need to kind of translate it. So if there are 10 people, it means 9 of them are going to sleep. So if there are 100, it means 90 people. Oh my gosh, that's a big number. So it takes me that process before I realize how big is something really. So I had to kind of map 30 million square kilometers to some things. And I did ask the person who knows the answer. Turned out to be Google. And this is what it told me. So I took these numbers and put it together, and turned out it's actually 29 million something. So I still had like a few to go. And I started to have cramps in my stomach, because to me that was just huge. And I literally got stuck. I'm like, I can't talk about all of this. I can't talk about this big square. I can't talk about all these people. I'm standing here, and it's not even like 1 square meter. And you want me to talk about 30 million square meters? I can't do that. I really entered into that phase. But then I remember how small I also was. I live in Joburg, and currently I'm here in Cape Town. And I'm really just like me. And when I look at all of this, it's almost as if I'm not there. It's almost as if my story can just go past me. Then I went through this phase. Maybe that doesn't make me insignificant. Maybe the fact that no one sees me as I'm walking in the middle of the street, I'm just like a woman walking there. Maybe that doesn't mean that I'm insignificant. Maybe the fact that my daily job involved me sitting in front of a computer, that someone would never remember me maybe when I die, doesn't mean that I'm insignificant. And it also doesn't mean that I cannot make an impact. And that's why I felt it's okay for me to be here. Why I felt it's okay for me to stand up here and tell you what I think about software development in Africa. And that's my motivation for being here today. So let's talk about software development. I tried to memorize the definition by the book Upheavals. It was very long. But then, I know it's something about writing software. The things you do before, the things you do during, and the things you do after. That's kind of how I say it, and that's kind of how I want to talk about it. It involves a lot of things, and all these things kind of can be summarized to the process. I want to write a piece of software. There's a process I want to follow. And that process includes the tools, include the methodologies, or whatever you guys talk about. And we like to talk about these things as developers. We like to talk about what's the coolest language for me to do this thing. Or another person would say, what do I think is the most significant language? Or what is more likely to get me close to the solution? What is the best approach? Or I'm just going to say, what seems really cool in the community right now? Is it Ruby or is it Python? What's the thing, right? So people make those decisions based on different things they value. Sometimes we even go further, and then we say, oh, I'm going to write this, but oh, I don't want to do it from scratch. Maybe I need a framework. And we kind of make those decisions as developers. We even realize that some people like to do it the waterfall way. Some other people like to be agile. And we kind of sit and we say, oh, I'm going down with the waterfall. What if I'm in the middle of something? As I'm going down the water, then I realize I want to go back top. Maybe I should go agile. And we have discussions about the thing. And it's part of software development. Part of software development is having those discussions about defensive coding and saying, oh, no, that's not so good. We have to do it the test-driven development way because it makes you a better developer, a better designer. It's all about the design. And we have this discussion. It's really cool to have them. And they say, oh, no, maybe the next frontier is actually behavior-driven development, because then you start to think about the specification. It's not only about the test. And we sit and we have this discussion, and we say, oh, you know, domain-driven development, it's so cool. It's all about the domain, man. I tell you, even BDD is part of it. Like, BDD was, and we have this discussion. It's just so cool to be talking about this thing. Sometimes even I wonder if we know very well what we're talking about, but really we sound cool when we do that. We talk about whether we want to do our own stuff alone. I just enjoy coding by my own. I don't want to do it with someone else. I know what I'm doing. You have to trust me. I've been doing this for 10 years, and it's really cool. Or some other people like to do it in pairs. And then comes the big debate about, oh my gosh, I can't believe TFS really exists. Oh, geez, I'm telling you, Git is just so cool. And we talk about this thing. How do you want to go about version control? And then you go see not picking on them, a very old guy who's been doing that for 15 years and has like version 1, version 2, version 3 in the computers. And you see stuff like that. And we talk about this discussion. But then, that's the process, the tools, the methodology, the languages and frameworks, all of that. When we talk about software development, I think we should also talk about a user. Because that's important. That's the person who will be using the software. And that person can be, I don't know, someone working at the bank, or a person shopping somewhere in ShopRite. Or it could be you. You're doing it for fun. I'm such a lazy person that if I have to do something so many times over and over again, I'll find a way to just automate it. I was even told one day by my colleague I could actually automate my family problems. That's just the way I do it. I'm the user. That's what is important. That's also what's part of software development. So let's talk about that user in Africa, because we're talking about software development in Africa. What is it that the user wants in Africa? What is it that she's looking for? She wants mobility. I tend to do a lot of readings and just random stuff. And if I find something interesting and I can't read it now, I'm just going to queue it in my pockets and then find myself in the train, take it out of the pocket, queue, and read it. So I was reading the other day, more than half population of Africa only use $2 per day. That's all they can afford. And for us in South Africa, that would be roughly, last time I checked, it was 11 rand, 22 rands. I mean, a person like that is not really thinking about big things. You're not thinking about a laptop with, I don't know, the super fast internet connection. The person like that maybe can only afford a phone that costs $50. And yes, more than 70% of people in Africa do not have smartphones. It's sad, but it's a reality. I go home with my old Sony Ericsson Xperia Pro, And people in my family think it's a cool phone. And I'm like, it's not, it's so lame. My S4 is way better than that. But that's just the reality in Africa. So we need to start thinking for a way to provide mobility to those people. Support it. How can I go about doing it? How can I get the services that I need if I cannot go there? How can I go about finding the information that I need? How can information come to me if I'm not able to afford the fancy things? Because it might happen, yes, because if I'm in Africa, there's more than 50% a chance that I would be poor. It's a sad fact, but it's the reality. And something that we need to remember. Sometimes when we're in the middle of all these cool things, we just need to remember that. And sometimes, really, it's not about me not having a car or not being able to go to the service. It's just about the sad fact like this. And this is an actual road in my country where I come from, the DRC. And for those who don't know it, like a big part of Congo is in the forest in the north. So it kind of rains more than one time every single day if you're in the north part. So if you're living somewhere where it rains more than one time and the road looks like that, it means if I need to go to the hospital now to find out something that's really quick, I just cannot do it. It means maybe I wanted to do something to go buy the books today or whatever, but I just can't do it because of this. And sometimes, if you're even unlucky, you might just find yourself in the hands of the rebels. We watch the news and we hear this thing every day. Something has happened in Sudan. Something has happened in Congo. Oh, Mali is going through this and that. We just keep on hearing that. As I'm thinking now, I just want us to realize how lucky South Africa could be at some point. But Africa is not just South Africa. I mean, I was in India once, and people ask me, oh, so where are you from? I'm like, oh, I'm from the DRC. It's like, oh, which part of South Africa the DRC is from? I'm like, I'm thinking if DRC has to be part of South Africa, then South Africa will have to grow twice its size and add a few more square kilometers so that it could accommodate us, because that's how big Congo is. And things like that, we hear that all the time. You hear things like, oh, so is Congo in the north of Africa and stuff like that. We don't know this thing, and we need to know stuff like this happen outside of South Africa. So what kind of mobile services do you think that the user needs? Everything. There's been quite a tendency of mobile health happening in Africa, many countries. There was a project that I really like, Motek. So the whole idea was to inform pregnant women and women who just delivered babies about things that goes around and like when to make an appointment for the doctor. And most of these women live in the rural community in Ghana. So they noticed that it was always hard for them to travel every time. So they created an application to help them register themselves and the kids. And then every week you'll get a message where they're telling you what to eat or when to come for your next appointment, what to do. And some of the things where you will think, oh my gosh, really someone can believe that. Like there was old woman wife tales that says, if you eat eggs while you're pregnant, your kids will turn out to be a thief. And for many years, women would not eat things like that. And it could be an egg, it could be a cow. Oh, because I don't want my kids to turn out as a thief. And you believe that, and you grow like that, and you create a generation of people that have just the wrong information. And what the application does, it will actually send you a message to say, actually, you've been hearing this for many years, but it's not true. Now, here I'm sitting, and I've never been to school, and I've been taught by my mom to make sure never to eat an egg because my kids might turn out to be a criminal. But now I'm being taught by my doctor, because I believe I went there to register, and that lady registered me, and she's a doctor. I'm getting the information that I need to get at the time that I need it. And this is really important when you want to talk about software in Africa. Again, I was reading the other day that For many smallholders farmers in Africa to get the state-of-the-art information that they need to advance their thing, it might take 40 years before they get that information that they need. So a lot of initiative has also been happening, I think, especially in countries like Uganda and Kenya. As I speak here, we have to understand that unlike many commercial farming that's happening in South Africa, outside of South Africa, most of them are more just like sustenance kind of farming. So you need to find a way, how can I help this woman or this guy to actually make himself more than just feed his family? How she's producing so much and so much is put to waste, or she's not able to produce much because she just doesn't know what to do. How can I move her from just doing that to actually being able to sustain herself, and her kids, and maybe, I don't know, whatever, and actually have a better life? So things like mobile farming is also happening, and a few countries are starting to look into it. People keep on saying the two biggest problems of Africa is health and education. And we hear that, and we have this conversation. I'm not even going to talk about the case of South Africa, and over again. How do I get a kid who's been using the book that dates from 1960s to actually get the latest information? I remember from my time, when I was studying and we were given a geography assignment, we'll go to the neighbor house and then ask them if they have the Wikipedia, and it have like, oh, this is only for letter A, and it'd be a big book like that. And any information that starts with A, I'll go look at it. And then you want to go to the other neighbor and get a very big one about the letter C. And that's literally how I'll get information for my, I don't know, my assignment, my expose and stuff like that. And most of them were stuff from like 1970s and 1980s. And that's how I went through school. That's how I went through education. But should it really be like that when you can actually get the latest stat about 2012 in Africa? Why would you have to read all these things and look through a very big and old that had already been tested so many times if you can just get access to the latest one? And we need to find ways, and a lot of things are being done, to actually get information to the people that need it, the student. How many of you have heard about MPSF? Yeah, it's good. So what I liked about the whole idea of M-Pesa was the fact that a person who could not afford having a bank account can actually send money to their kids who are studying in the city. Or the fact that the kids who's in the city can now send money to a brother who's still in the village and is about to pass grade 10, I don't know. So that whole concept about it, of microfinancing. And now people in the middle class have realized that it's like, oh, so why she doesn't need to have an account and I need to have an account. Now I want to have better services on my mobile from my bank, right? So with the middle class creating itself in Africa, they're going to want to have better services in their mobile. They're going to have to find out everything about their account as they're working, because they're thinking that woman who doesn't even have an account, if she want to send money just now to her parents, she can do it. I should be able to do it too. So you have the middle class who want better services, and then you want also the lower class who's also want to kind of have some kind of accessibilities. So this opens up new doors in terms of mobile financing. Going global by actually going more local. And that's what I think digital localization is all about. South Africa has 11 languages. And I love to hear South African complaints, oh, that's ridiculous, just too many languages. And I think to myself, Congo has more than 200 languages. It's like, you're really lucky. And I actually thought Congo has the most languages in entire Africa. So I went again and asked the person who has the answer. And this is what they told me. Nigeria has more than 400 languages. Yeah, right? That's crazy. But it's Africa. It's part of what we are. It's there. We're not going to kill those languages so that we want to accommodate, I don't know, some other thing. There's one thing about getting information to someone there was another thing about getting information to someone, to the language that is close to their heart. And that's just the reality. My mom moved in the city from the village when she got married. She was 17. And in the village, they spoke Chiluba. So when she moved in the city in Kinshasa people speak Lingala, so she had to learn Lingala. And so then we were bored. My dad, on the other side, he came to the city so he could have education, so he went to school and stuff. So my dad also spoke French. So this is how it worked, in the daily kind of thing at my place. My dad and mom would talk to Chiluba because that's the language that were close to both of their hearts. And when my dad wanted to talk to us, he would talk in French because he wanted us to be fluent in French. That's why my English is so messed up. And when my mom wants to talk to us, she'll talk in Lingala because we couldn't understand Chiluba. Like, as we grew up, we started to understand, but we couldn't speak. So she'll talk to us in Chiluba, we'll answer in Lingala. And that's a normal family, right? So that's the kind of things. And I'm sure in South Africa, you also see that a lot. You, at home, you speak in Afrikaans. The moment you go to the shop, you start speaking English. Things like that are just part of what we are. My American colleague was telling me the other day how much jealous she is of me that I can speak 4 languages, and he only has English. But it's part of what we are. It's part of our identity. The fact that, for me, it's just normal to do something like that. So if you give me information to a language, you want to do it to something that is close to my heart. We have over 2,000 languages in Africa alone. That's scary. But it's also good news. Apparently, 19 of them could be put into classes that kind of words that resemble, so you could kind of get away with only 19. So you need to start thinking about ways to exploit those clusters. I'm like, if I'm going to exploit those clusters, there are some things I need to know. I say adios in Spanish, and is it Spanish or Portuguese? Spanish or Portuguese? Adios. And I say it means goodbye. In French, when I hear adios, because I've done Latin, and I know French and Spanish, they all come from the same language. So it kind of resonates to me, is adieu. But in French, adieu means goodbye forever. So I would say adieu to someone, let's say they're moving away, like you're watching a movie from the 1950s. There was a lady, she has something on her hands, and she's waving to a guy who's never going to come back, and she's saying adieu. That's what comes to me when I hear adieu. So when you tell that to me, I'm like, why are you saying that to me? Are you thinking I'm going to die? So you need to kind of find a way to exploit those clusters and knowing how much can I give up on as I'm doing so. Right? Digital localization, it's part of what we have. How many people use internet in Africa? I like the fact, you can see how blue South Africa is, no? It's very blue. And what country is this one? Egypt. Good. And this one? Mali. This one? It's like people are trying, but they don't want to say out loud, because now everyone will know, you don't know. Sudan. And this one? Kenya, it's an easy one. So, not everyone will have internet. And when they do, not everyone will have fast internet. Last year when I was in the US, I went in our office in Chicago, and I sat there, and I opened a page, and almost closed my eyes before I finished, everything had finished loading, and I got scared. Like, what's happening? This is not normal. But it's a true reality. Internet was so scarily fast. Like, I would be watching a video, it feels like I'm watching it on my computer. I'm like, oh my gosh, life could be more beautiful. And it just felt so peaceful. It doesn't happen where I stay. No, it just doesn't happen. I have a Vodacom modem ever loaded. I'm like, dear, I want to move just because of this. And when you go home in Congo, it's even worse, because you have your phone, and it's about to die, and you're trying to access a page. Just when it loads, your phone dies, and there's no electricity at home. So the next thing is like, oh my gosh, where do I go? So now you need to start, okay, who am I going to go? Who should I visit? Okay, should I go to my aunt's? No, she talks to my, should I go? So you start thinking about the next person to visit just so that you can charge your phone. Right? But this is the reality. Things like that happen in Africa. Congo is 2 million square kilometers. 9% of the population of Congo, out of 70 million of people, 9% have access to electricity. So when I charge my phone, I want it to last. I want it to never end, because if it ends, it even means I need to visit someone who has electricity or go pay for it. So when we design applications for people like that, it means we need to think about stuff like caching, right? Let's say I'm filling a form and I'm in the middle of it, and then as I walk 1 kilometer, I lose connection, mobile network, gone. How do I resume that? Do I start from scratch when I go back, or I work again and I can have network? Do I start from scratch again? Something that I saw Motek, the application I told you earlier about, did, as they were registering patients, so they gave them the ability to actually save the form on their phone, and they were not smartphone. It was like a very cheap phone. And you can register the form. It was just a Java app. You are able to save the form locally, and then when you get in connection back, you can upload it to the server. So when you need to start thinking about issues like that. It's about can happen. We talk about software development. We talk about the process. We talk about the user. We talk about us. The people who make the things happen, right? People who talk about the cool stuff. The people who just make the magic happen. Like, when I was growing up, every time I watched a movie and then someone sitting in front of a computer, which was like they never stop. They never use the mouse. And the first time I touched a computer, I was 16 years old. I was in an internet cafe. A friend of mine told me, oh my gosh, have you ever had an email address? I'm like, what is that? So she told me all about it, and she went to her brother. It's like, you need to open an email account for my friend. So the brother opened an email account for me. Friend came to fetch me. It's like, we went to an internet cafe, and she was helping me with my first email. You know that welcome email? I felt so special. It's like, as I was opening it, and then it was like a card. It was caramel at that time. Oh, welcome, Charliene, and everything in French. I'm like, oh my gosh, someone cares about me. But it was magical, right? Because I just knew at that time, this is what I want to be doing. I didn't say I want to be opening emails every day. But this is what I want to be doing. I want to be the person sitting in front of this, doing the magical stuff for other people and teaching them how to do it. And we've gone through those moments. That first day when you touch the computer, you just knew, I want to be sitting in front of the computer for the rest of my day and get scoliosis. That's really what's being a developer. Last year, at the office, we had an event where, say, let's just talk. And we're about 20 people, 25, I'm not sure. And most of them were developers, and then we had like one BA and a UX guy, and just, let's talk about software. Let's talk about software in Africa. Actually, let's call it Pan-Africa software. You know that movements where Africa for Africans, doing things for Africa. What's really is about? Should we even call it like a society? Like, we don't know, let's just talk. So our first talk was, what is it that we don't like about software community as it is right now? So we had our moment of venting. I'm going to go through these things and just going to let you read what we thought. Now, this is mostly developers sitting together talking about software community. They should be saying, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for Python 3. I feel like it's going to die. Or, oh, you know, things like that. But none of this really came out. This made me realize something. Maybe really, it's more than just code. As I was sitting there, because I remember, especially when I was a student, the perfect day is me, the computer, drinking hot chocolate. It's no one, just me. And I was just like pissed. Just because I used even to say like, oh, humans are so complex. I like computer better. I wish people could be like computers. They just do what you tell them to do. And I used to say things like that. It was just perfect. Right? It's just peace. But as I was sitting there with other developers talking, I come to this. It's more than just code. It's even beyond me. As I'm sitting on my computer every single day doing my own stuff, because I love to do my own stuff, and just being cool on my own way, it's actually beyond me. Someone else there is expecting something from me. And maybe I am expecting something from someone. And then as I was sitting there, I actually imagined all of us as mosquitoes. All of a sudden, I didn't feel so small anymore. All of a sudden, I felt like, oh my gosh, I could be a mosquito that's 3 years old, and then there's another one 4 years teaching me biting techniques. But then I imagined if there were so many mosquitoes, imagine the kind of things I could do, right? Because then all the ones that know they're going to teach you all the cool stuff, the biting techniques, the jumping techniques, is like the flying ones, you know, you have to be at the perfect height and stuff like that. If she's so tall, you need to be about here so that she doesn't kill you, and all these things. Then I realized we could really collaborate. If a country that has over 400 could identify the clusters and develop some algorithm, so this is how we went about it, and publish it, then maybe South Africa will learn something about it and stop complaining about 11 languages being too many. So what's happening? We're creating hubs. And I appreciate the fact, I heard that Cape Town software community is very vibrant. I'm not from Cape Town. I'm not going to say it's true. I'm not going to say it's false. But it's a good thing that we're creating hubs. And we need technology hubs. We need to talk about the things we're doing. We need to share our success, but we also need to share our failures and know that it's okay to share our failures, because I could learn from your failure and you could learn from mine. Right? It's not about failing, but it's about how fast I fail and how fast can I tell people that I failed and admit it and move on. Because it's okay, it's all part of it. It's all part of the beauty of software development. Last year, this was in Kenya actually, at I went there for the Mobile East conference, then I went there to give a talk at IHAB. And it's really vibrant that I'm not going to talk about the success stories, it's like how much are we actually getting out of the Tech Hub, because I feel more comfortable with numbers that will involve counting the Tech Hub, how many projects they have, how many of them are commercial, and all that, and then I'm going to say, okay, maybe it's good, maybe it's not good. But let's start somewhere. Let's create those hubs, and let's share those stories. I'm going to show you a video of one of my friends, what he thinks about how software development in Africa could also be. Yes, I do.
Le changement positif que les Africains cherchent a besoin que nous puissions diversifier notre agenda. Nous avons des bonnes initiatives sur le continent, par exemple l'initiative de chercher le meilleur africain le plus intelligent sur l'Institut africain des sciences mathématiques à Cape Town. Ceci est bon, mais nous devons regarder au-delà de l'académie et commencer à développer des capacités sur d'autres domaines comme le business, comme la technologie et la politique.
So what he's basically talking about is like, maybe software development should stop being on their own. And also maybe we should stop looking at just academia, right? And I think these are very important things. It's like, let's look behind academia. African population is in majority young. I don't know if we know that. That means something. These people are gonna need jobs. And these people, if they don't find jobs, they need to become innovators. They need to be able to find themselves and innovate and use the tools and blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, we're in big trouble. And these people are going to be here for longer because they're young. So something has to be done. But there's also a part about it. Business, politics, whatever. Let it be more than just software. How can we collaborate with, I don't know, an ONG and NGO, that's ONG is in French, NGO, and create an application where someone who finds themselves in the forest and it's shooting can actually send it, I don't know, an SMS or broadcast something. It's like, I'm actually in this location and this is happening. Make sure you don't pass by here. Because things like that happen. Like people, rebels comes into an entire village and they take an entire village and they bring them in the forest and they keep them there for months and rape them. Things like that happen in my country. It's not some old thing, it's the reality. How can I write an application where someone like that could actually broadcast just a number and, I don't know, it get to the authority or whatever? How can a school where the lecture's not been there for more than 10 days, actually kids can report, hi, my teacher's not been here for more than 10 days, help us, without feeling so unsecure, without being so scared, oh, they're going to find out and come and arrest me or do something to me. Right? How can we use the cool things that we have, the technology, and then bring the human part of it together? In a project that I worked on before I moved on my current project, when I'm trying to find out whether I'm a dev or an ops, still a bit confused. It was Pedigree, and it's a mobile application that allowed people to actually SMS a code you see on a hidden code on the medication, and you get a response whether it's fake or not. It's being used in the west of Africa because, like the country like Nigeria, 70% of malaria drugs is like fake. So something like that. And we used Vumi. I don't know if there's anyone here from Vumi. And I saw Vumi office other day here in Cape Town. It's like, how can we take something like that and do it, bring more value out of it? What am I trying to say? Software, it's about the process, it's about the tools. It's about us, because we make it happen. We do these things. We know these things. We know how cool it feels. I was just telling Aslam today, relating to him a story, it's like, I've never felt so good about writing a presentation as when I was using hovercraft to write my presentation. It's like a wrapper around Impress.js. And I'm sitting there, I'm writing some restructured text. I have a page open about how do I put a header one. And I have my Vim windows open. And I've created like my shortcuts. I've mapped everything. It's like I do Kamati. And it just ran. And oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. Next thing I look at an image and I'm like, okay, maybe I should make it blurry. Maybe I should do that. CSS tree. Okay, this is how you do it. Oh, cool. And I just feel so good. And that piece is just like beautiful. And that's really what I want to be. Okay, turned out that I couldn't use that for my presentation because my speaker note won't show on my old computer. But this is what I am, and I really, really love it. How can I take all of that, all that vision, all that love, and turn it to her? Because at the end of the day, it's really about her. It's really about the value that I can give to the user. It's, at the end of the day, what really matters is how much value am I bringing to that user. It could be me. It could be the person sitting next to me, or the one who's going to work into Pick and Pay tomorrow, or someone who's using a standard bank application, Or even a lady was able to report that she was raped. Or even a guy sitting somewhere and reading something, I don't know, on his phone, information app. Or even the lady who could make an appointment using a phone to the doctor to say, my baby is really sick, can I come now? How can I really make it about her? As we go back, next week, we sit in front of our computer and we have our cool conversation, doing our cool stuff in solo, in pair. It doesn't matter. I love Agile or I don't love Agile or whatever. I'm trying to understand what is DDD. Oh my gosh, Puppets. Oh geez, Ansible is so much better. When we're doing all these things, when we're having all this conversation, if we could just keep it in the back of our mind, somewhere there, just somewhere, that is really about the user and they need value. And we have that ability. We can bring them that value. So let's do that. Let's find a way. This is really what I want us to take out of here. If you can forget anything else I said, could forget everything about my mom, please forget the fact that she was married at 17. All of that, just remember that. How can I bring value to the user? And this is what I wanted to talk about today. Thank you. So that was my side of the conversation, and I would love to hear your side of the conversation. What do you think software development in Africa needs to know about this continent? Going once. Yes.
So the video was talking about politics, and we're talking to people that care a lot about corruption and national campaigns. Has been attempts to use technology to shed light on corruption?
So you want to know whether there have been any attempts to use technology to launch corruption. I know in Uganda, there was, I think UNICEF developed an application that helps people report any problem they find in the society. I think the similar thing was also done also in Kenya as they were going to the presidential elections, where people could report also stuff during the election. So stuff are being doing, like as I say, like, you need, somehow you find out, oh, this has happened in Kenya and Uganda, and maybe something just dies and people in South Africa won't know how to use it. But definitely I've heard about tools already where people actually use and then kind of denounce it. How much action do they take afterward? That's, I don't know. But I believe that, I mean, if, I don't know, 100,000 people will send you an email all the time to tell you that you're really bad, I think at some point it's going to get to you. I met Paul Mason, is an activist, came the other day, and he helps people denounce things like that without being actually located, right? So it's like, how can I go about informing what is happening and still feeling safe? So he has an organization and they try to work and find ways to actually be safe hackers. So there are quite a few initiatives happening. Yes. Hi.
You spoke about 12 broad category languages.
19.
19. Okay. Broad category languages that kind of encompass African languages. Is there somewhere we can go read about that? Find out about that?
So you want to know where somewhere we can read about it and find about those 19 languages. I think there's someone who knows the answer. Google. I read about it in the research paper. I can try find it for you. And yeah, I hope they name all these languages. Yes. Yes, I think it was the first.
Do you think the penetration of smartphones in Africa is slow because of the shitty battery life or because of the, because I didn't realize it's the electricity was
So you want to know whether it's the cost? I think it's both, actually. There was a part about cost. So this is the thing. Many people, many families will spend, I don't know, the first 18 or 20 years of their life without having a new phone. Because when I use my phone, after 2 years, I'll give it to someone, and I'll give it to someone. There is this tendency in Africa of reusing and thing. And I would actually try to repair it until I remember my first phone, I used it until there was no button, and I would take a toothpick, actually try to pick. That's how bad. There was a part about trying to keep what we had because I just can't afford the other one now. There's also a part about when you take a Nokia 3310, you will charge it and it will stay alive for a week. And if I don't have electricity for 2 weeks, if I can have 1 week without charging, that's just heaven. So I think it's part of both. Yes.
So I worked on a similar product to MPSF, the competitor. And the biggest problem I noticed is that developers sitting in Cape Town with bank accounts didn't understand the users they were building stuff for. And I think that's probably true for most of the types of applications you're talking about people in this room building for Africa. What is your experience idea? How does a software developer in Cape Town get in touch with a user like that and understand what they really need and what they like to do?
It's a very good question. I really think about it. So you want to know how can we get in touch with that user and find out what they go through? One thing that I do a lot is I just keep my eyes open. Because life gets very comfortable with what I have and what I can do, my cell phone and thing. I just keep my eyes open, trying to find out what is it that's happening outside. And if there's a part of sympathy there, just going that extra mile and do readings and talking to people. Like, I meet someone from another country, like from Somalia, I'm like, oh my gosh, tell me about it and stuff like that. I just kind of keep my eyes open, my ears open, like looking around and making sure that I know as much as I can about other places. That's kind of how I go about it. I'm not sure if there's any other way. I'm not telling anyone here to go in a village in Congo and stay there for 2 weeks and come out of it. I'm like, now I know everything. I think you just keep your ears and eyes open, look around, and sympathize with it. Yes?
I was actually in Kenya at the time that M-Pesa actually came about, and I've experienced the world. I stayed there for 2 years. I experienced like what type of internet kind of connections that they have, and the penetration of most of the technology and into the internet is actually through mobile devices like M-Pesa. But very few people have smartphones, and I mean a lot of the things that we develop on is through the internet, and they have really slow. It's going to be very long for us to actually get a good marketplace actually start performing and giving these apps for people to use, even Signal and stuff for people is very long. So is there any initiation or things getting to people like education to help them understand how to use these devices and help them to understand how to use these applications that we're using? Because a few of the kids and stuff that I used to talk to at schools, they only learn about technology through their friends like you did. And it's very hard to actually find people to teach them that, because here in Africa, anybody that knows anything about computer science can get a job as a developer and make a lot more money than as a teacher teaching these kids. So the penetration being so slow, how are we going to develop apps over a long period of time to help them eventually?
By apps, you mean smartphone apps?
Yes. I mean, through web, it's very, very slow. Not a lot of people interact with computers.
Maybe then we need to find a way also to develop apps that's going to cater for low-hand phone. As I was talking, and I submitted my talk at Grasshopper, and I said it was first feature phone providing mobile health services in Africa. And the people wrote to me, they didn't know what was a feature phone. So I had to change the subject of my talk and say, not so smartphone. And then it got accepted. So maybe because it's getting so slow, as we're trying to figure out, because I think we need to do that, maybe we can also start where we are currently and accept that fact. And maybe we need to find a way to accommodate this feature phone. Something like USSD in America is not really used so much, but here we use it for a lot of stuff, right? We use it for mobile banking and stuff, a lot of applications. So I think as we're trying to figure out the not so smartphone, I wish I could tell you how to, I really do not know. Maybe we also need to start thinking about how to use what they have currently and give them information. And I think that's also important.
So like you would suggest like starting with what most people have, like
Yes.
probably getting to doing a bit of Java apps.
Yes, like application that I've talked about, and Pedigree and Motek, And none of them require you to have a smartphone, just normal phone application. And to that, I would say thank you.
No come electo por la vida.